The Underking, or the Evil One, was a cryptic dignitary shrouded in mystery and myths, known throughout Tamriel in the Third Era, and by some reports even earlier. His armies of living and undead followers were called his agents, and he was understood to be against Mannimarco, the King of Worms, and his sect of necromancers. The Underking was one of 7 groups in the Iliac Bay region that performed a considerable part in the affairs before and during the Warp in the West in the Third Era 417. The Underking was the old bugbear of fables chronicled back to the initial years of the Septim dynasty. Some legends characterized him as an incredibly aged and incredibly mighty lich, or at least something similar to one. Other tales alleged he was an archmage, in life the most compelling and impressive mage who ever existed. Somehow this mage lost his heart, and his very existence was reconstructed. The mage's heart disappeared, and lacking it, the Underking cannot truly survive or perish. There are conflicting records of the Underking's origin, though the tales divide some parallels. The Second Era saw Emperor Tiber Septim conduct an array of battles with the intention of dominating or otherwise ameliorating all of Tamriel. At his flanking was the Imperial battle mage Zurin Arctis. The closing years of the era saw the Empire turn its concentration to Morrowind. Rather than pursue bloodshed, the Tribunal endorsed an armistice. While the definite terms were never revealed, it was hypothesized that the mortal god Vivek complied to hand over the Numidium to the Empire, a gargantuan brass golem forged by the Dwemer, to assist in dominating the Somerset Isles. It was also hypothesized that Zurin Arctis performed a considerable part in negotiating the armistice. With the potential of the Numidium, the Empire could effortlessly overthrow the Second Aldemari Dominion, but there was a complication: Numidium would not operate. By Tiber Septim's order, Zurin Arctis created an extraordinary relic that gave its wielder the potential to manage the Empire's new weapon, the Totem of Tiber Septim. The battle mage also planted an insignia on the totem. Anyone not of the Septim genealogy, or at least of royal ancestry, or holding a distinct superhuman aspect, would be annihilated if they pursued to utilize it. But the totem was insufficient. Numidium did not possess a power source. The Dwemer had initially used the Heart of Lorcan, but this was no longer accessible. Undaunted, a substitute source of power was created, a large green gem known as the Mantella, which was soaked with Arctis's own soul. Numidium was revived in the Second Era 896 at Rimmen and elsewhere, and the Isles were no contest for its horrendous power. It is said that the obstruction of Alinor persisted only an hour before the Ultimar submitted. Tamriel was consolidated, and the Emperor announced the beginning of the Third Era after the following year. Tiber Septim deceived his battle mage, however. Once the Empire's adversaries were destructed, the Emperor started utilizing Numidium to destroy the non-partisan royal families of Tamriel and institute loyalists. Zurin Arctis, enraged at this mistreatment, engaged to recover the Mantella. In the clash that occurred, both Zurin Arctis and Numidium were decimated, and the Mantella, their mutual heart, was blown into the realm of Aetherius. The totem of Tiber Septim was also obscured as the debris of Numidium was shattered across Tamriel, and Arctis, severed from the Mantella, flattened into a condition of semi-slumber in an underground depository somewhere in High Rock. As the Third Era advanced, the Empire's exclusive soldiers, who would come to be established as the Blades, were assigned with assembling the detritus of Numidium. Zurin Arctis became known as the Underking, and dispatched his subordinates forth in pursuit of the Mantella. Another record tells that the Underking was Ysmir Wolfharth, a High King of Skyrim in the First Era, who regularly came back to life at multiple points in history, and was a living embodiment of Shor, the Nordic version of Lorcan. His ensuing embodiment, the Ash King, is said to have been conjured back to life to clash with the Dwemer at the Battle of Red Mountain in the First Era, and again to Red Mountain in the Second Era 572, to confront the Second Akaviri invasion. Some details of the second battle mention the Ash King as the Underking. Wolfharth the Underking was a confidant too, and classified otherworldly associate of Hjalti Earlybeard, who would in the future become Emperor Tiber Septim. When the Emperor shifted his concentration to Morrowind, the Underking advised him to dominate the land, as Wolfharth had a long animosity towards elvenkind. Nevertheless, the armistice was endorsed alternatively. Wolfharth felt misled by the compromise given to the Dunmer, and relinquished the Empire. Without the Underking, Tiber Septim discarded hope of conceiving a unified Tamriel. Meanwhile, as Numidium was now possessed by the Empire, Tiber Septim had Zurin Arctis examine and research it. The battle mage ultimately learned of the Battle of Red Mountain, of Numidium's genuine intent and potential, and of the Underking's engagement. However, his examination was discovered off fragmentary Dwemer schematics. Arctis came to the final judgment that Numidium was energized by the heart, or life force, of Lorcan's visceral anatomy, that is, his mortal embodiment, Wolfharth. Upon listening to this disclosure, Tiber Septim understood that with Numidium, he could fulfill his occupation of Tamriel and position a ruse for Wolfharth. The Underking reappeared upon being informed that the Emperor had settled to attack the tribunal after all, but was greeted by the Imperial Guards. A battle occurred, in which Sir Arctis cast a soul trap spell on the Underking. As he perished, Wolfharth's heart ripped a hole through Zurin's chest, executing him. The Emperor then arrived, gathered the soul gem consisting of Wolfharth's heart, the Mantella, and blanketing up the event by allegating Arctis had been murdered while pursuing a feat. Numidium was then utilized to dominate the Somerset Isles. Soon after the battle, a rotting undead wizard materialized and blew Numidium to shards, though he was then destroyed by the Numidium's death struggles. Tiber Septim was then crowned first Emperor of Tamriel, and reigned for 38 more years. He was prevailed by his grandson, Pelagius I, to whom the Underking also emerged again, declaring to have been sent by Tiber Septim to aid the new emperor to run his empire. During the imperial simulacrum, the Eternal Champion was known to have encountered the Underking's subordinates, who were characterized as dogmatic and apparently deranged. Of peculiar note, the champion was assigned with reclaiming a document from the den of Golthog the Dark, a goblin chieftain told to have been a necromancer in service to the Underking in Hammerfell. In return, Queen Blubanka of Rihad aided in unearthing the position of a fragment of the Staff of Chaos. The Eternal Champion also reclaimed the Ring of Khajiit from a catacomb in Blackmarsh, where it had also been concealed by the Underking. In the Third Era 401, the position of the Mantella was determined by Nulfaga the Sorceress, Queen Mother of Daggerfall. Around this time, Emperor Uriel Septim VII was told that the totem of Tiber Septim had also been discovered. 4 years later, Uriel VII sent an agent with the blades to the Iliac Bay district to inspect the death of King Lysandus of Daggerfall, and also to discover an absent letter he had penned to that kingdom's queen. The Underking figured notably in many of the affairs to follow, ultimating in the Warp in the West. Prince Arthago of Sentinel, eldest son of King Cameron and Queen Akarithi, had disappeared in the Third Era 400. A well-known tale was that he had been captured by the Underking. Prince Lotun wanted to know the full account, and hired the agent to discover more information. With the aid of the Underking's minions, the agent was able to discover the truth, that the king and queen were behind the vanishing of Prince Arthago. The agent's efforts in Sentinel ultimately led to being contacted by the Underking to recapture an item taken by Manamarco and his necromancers, which they had profaned and given to the Blades. The agent was able to penetrate the Blades' refuge in Ikalon and reclaim the item before it could bear harm to the group. The agent ultimately determined that King Lysandus had been killed by Lord Woodbourne, an aristocrat from Wayrest, in an attempt to obtain influence, and that he had for some time been in control of the totem of Tiber Septim. The agent then reclaimed the totem from the heavily guarded depository of Castle Daggerfall, which promptly started a bidding battle between 7 extensive powers of the Iliac Bay, including the Empire, for its custody. The Underking was one of these and made his offer. Centuries ago, Tiber Septim ruled the land and forged an empire with great Numidium. The secret of Numidium's power lies in its heart, carried within the Mantella. It is the heart of Tiber Septim's battle mage. It is my heart. It is my Mantella. It is my totem. It belongs to me and to none other. I have won and lost an empire. I have no desire to tamper further with mortal affairs. I have in my possession Necromancer's amulet, one of the world's greatest artifacts. You may have it in exchange for the totem. In the end, the agent gave the totem to the Underking, then navigated to Aetherius and reclaimed the Mantella. At the Underking's command, Numidium was stimulated once again. He roused from centuries-long slumber, pursued across the bay to come into contact with the automaton, and reunited with his heart in a colossal explosion. For an abrupt moment, he was flesh and blood again, then finally capable to receive the true death he had so long desired. The elimination of Numidium conceived an anti-magic sphere of a several miles radius encompassing the area. Impossibly, through some array of time contortion, each of the other 6 parties synchronously collected the totem as well, and triggered Numidium to their own terms. The developing catastrophe forever mutated the kingdoms of the Iliac Bay, and the occurrence was later titled by the Blades as the Warp in the West. In the Third Era 433, the champion of Cyrodiil navigated to the crumbling ruins of Sancrator in the Gerald Mountains to reclaim the armor of Tiber Septim. The ruins had been secured by the Blades in the Third Era 36 after 4 representatives had disappeared from within. Once inside, the champion confronted the ghosts of the 4 blades, who had been profaned by the Underking along with the rest of the ruins. With their aid, the champion was able to breach the curse and reclaim the armor.